Hello, this is Ryan Matt Borden, aka Loopline, and in this video we're going to cover how to set up a server with Auto SMTP. Just a basic setup. I'm going to be setting up Power MTA and Mailwhizz, but regardless of if you set up Mailwhizz or Mumara or just Power MTA, etc., the process is more or less pretty similar, and they've built a pretty easy walkthrough here. So I'm just logged into the members area here, and I'm just going to choose to install the server. And I've got CentOS 7, and there's some server companies here that are mentioned. And then you can just choose CentOS 7 because I have CentOS 7 if you're using CentOS 8, which I think is going away anyway, so it doesn't matter. I'm going to choose the IP warming option where it warms up the IPs for me because I'm going to be sending emails constantly. If you wanted, of course, you could choose the non-IP warming, but I'm going to choose this and let it run. And then we get to choose, of course, everything installs Power MTA. If we want to install Interspire or Mailwhizz or Mumara as our agents, and then when we're done, we install the SSL certificate. It kind of walks us through anyways. We're on step 3. So I'm going to install Mailwhizz. I'm going to choose that. And then it's going to ask me some questions such as my domain, my host name, and that sort of stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video and fill that out, and I'll be back. Okay. So your domain is just a domain that you're going to register just for this. I just pick up a cheap one like a .xyz, etc. from whatever your favorite registrar is. Usually you can get those pretty cheap at a lot of places on sale. Then your host name, which you set up with your hosting company. Mine is just server.domain.tld, so like server.domain.com is the format I used. I don't think that really much matters. It just has to match whatever your server company sets up. Your reverse DNS tag, they pre-populate this with MTA. I just left it. Put in your admin email address. This is whatever email address you want to be able to log into your chosen, mine's Mailwhizz, to your chosen interface with. And then your first and last name, your SQL password. This is just something that you pick. It's going to set up the SQL for you. You don't already have to have one set up, so this could be anything you want as long as it's secure. And then your SMTP username. It pre-populates the word contact in there. I just left it because I don't care. Into your SMTP password. And actually it looks like I didn't do that, so let me do that. And so I did that. And then the extra emails password, here. And then I rolled down and it chooses your SMTP port. It pre-populates 2525, which I just left because that's fine for me. And then lastly, the email address where you want to get reports sent to. And so answer all those questions again on this extra emails password, SMTP password, and SQL password. Just make these up to be whatever you want them to be as long as they're secure, and it will create everything for you. Hit submit. Then it's going to come in here and it's going to ask us for our server information. And so it's got some stuff pre-populated in here, and you want to put in the actual IP address of your server, which that's not it. And then your port, and then your username, which is most generally root. So unless your server company gives you some other username, just leave root there. And then the actual password. So let me do that. So I have filled in that information, and I'm going to hit submit. Now this script is going to come over here and then upload it to our server for us. And so it's basically uploading a script to the server, and then we're going to SSH into our server, which we can just do with PuTTY. And I think that there's, if I recall, there's a link in here somewhere to PuTTY, but you can just Google it. It's just PUTTY. You may have used it in the past, maybe not. And I just bounce back to getting started. I'm just going to click through a couple again because we're going to be doing the SSL certificate in a minute. And let's go and open up PuTTY and get logged in. So we have PuTTY. And we're going to put in our IP address of our server, the port, click open. I literally left every single other setting the same. And this is how you spell it if you want to Google it. And it's going to bring up a window here. We're going to log in as, again, root is the username. And then it's going to ask us for our password in just a moment. And we're going to put in the password. And so we need to enter the password, so I'll do that. And then just hit enter. I believe you can also right click too, and it'll paste the password. And then you can see now it's running through doing the script. So that's going to take a few minutes to several minutes. It even says right here this may take a few minutes. It's downloading components that it needs and installing everything, creating the database, creating Mailwhizz, creating Power MTA, etc. So I won't leave the video on here. I'll go ahead and pause it, but just bear in mind this is going to take a few minutes to get done, depending on various factors like the speed of your server, the resources, etc. Okay, so it's done. We're going to get this fatal error. That's very normal. It is to be expected. We can just click OK, and then we can see here script installed success. Wait for the restart, yada yada yada. So we have to set our DNS. Let's make this bigger so you can see what's going on. We have to set up our DNS, which if we roll up, we can see it has made mail servers for us. So I'm not going to get into how to do that because that's really kind of its own thing. I assume that you know how to register your own DNS server and to set up DNS stuff. So basically it's two steps. You can go to your registrar and register a DNS server, and so it's just ns1.yourdomain.com, so yourdomain.tld, and then ns2.yourdomain.tld. And so you register those two name servers and you point them to the IP address of your server, the same IP address you logged into with PuTTY, the same IP address you put into Auto SMTP. So you point those two name servers to that and register them with your registrar. Not all registrars allow you to register name servers, but many of them do, so you might want to check before you jump in. And then also, once that's done, then you have to go into that domain in your registrar and set those as your name servers. So let's say our domain is greatemails.com. We're going to go into our registrar and we're going to make name servers ns1.greatemails.com and ns2.greatemails.com, and the IP address is the IP address of our server. And then we are going to go into the actual greatemails.com domain in our registrar and then change the name servers to point to ns1.greatemails.com and ns2.greatemails.com. So you change the domain to point to the name servers you just created with the same domain name. Once that's done and it propagates, you're good to go as far as everything working, and then we can install the SSL certificate. But the last thing we want to do before we do that is probably roll up a little bit here, because it gives us the server configuration data created by Auto SMTP. And so it tells you where you can find the SQL database, and it tells you where the Mailwhizz installation is, and it tells you the sending portal and then the SMTP data and that sort of thing. So it's a good idea probably to just copy all of this, highlight it all, and then copy and paste it. You can use Control-C on the keyboard, and probably Command-C on Mac, I would assume, although I don't even know if they make PuTTY for Mac. But anyways, you can do that and paste it into a notepad file or a document or whatever, and just keep track of that, just because you might want that information on how to get there and how to actually log in and do everything. And it's a little different for, I did Mailwhizz, obviously Mumara is a little different and that sort of thing, but all that data is there. So I'm just going to go ahead, I'm just going to actually copy the entire file here, section, and I'm going to save it off, and I'll be right back. Lastly would be that when I drag through there, I'm just going to grab everything and save it, because it has useful information such as server commands and that sort of thing. And then somewhere in here it tells you that this file is also located on the server, and you can log into it and actually view this file. But anyways, it's here. You might as well copy it and save yourself the trouble. And once we are done with that, I'm going to just nuke PuTTY there, and then let me get this back up. And then I'm back to the members area. You could have hit back on your browser a couple times or get started here and then go back to it. I'm going to install an SSL certificate on this, and it's basically, then we're just right back to here where it's asking us for information for the server, and it's going to upload it for us. I'm going to do that and be right back, and then I'm going to hit upload and let it do that. And so then it's going to come back and say that it's uploaded to the server, and as soon as it does that, then we can, actually it didn't come back and say it, it just did it, I remember that. So I'm going to pop this back open, we're going to go back to the server, we're going to log back in, root, and then the password, log in, and then it just takes off and it keeps going. It does say this error here. That's normal. I've done this multiple times and it says that every time. And it takes off and does what it needs to do. And so I'll pause the video while it runs here yet. And so then it gets done. And I actually got a little error here because I already installed an SSL certificate on this server yesterday, but normally it just finishes here and away we go. And it did finish. It grabbed a Let's Encrypt certificate and installed it. And so that's it. And so once the SSL certificate is installed, you can do a simple test as well before you jump in and actually start using it, and pop open your browser and just enter in the address in the address bar, and you'll see it did install the certificate and HTTPS and that sort of thing, and you'll see this kind of image here, and that means that everything's working. And then you could proceed into actually getting the URL of like Mailwhizz, Interspire, or Mumara, whatever you're using, and start configuring that and then sending your emails. And that is how you can set up and configure a server with your chosen mailing agent as well as Power MTA using Auto SMTP.